making of a Yearmix. The annual Yearmix is a project of many actions. Before you can watch and listen to the final product at the end of December, there's a long way to go. The unrest is already starting to gnaw at the end of September. That's usually the time when I really start recording and collecting all the hits of the year. I do this by keeping an eye on many charts throughout the year, national and international. Besides having to download each video separately from YouTube or other sources, I still need a lot of information with each song. Leading factors in my mixes are the speed, the beats per minute and the key. For a smooth running mix, both speed and key must go up. To know which songs are a good match, I have to calculate this information from each song. Sometimes down to the thousandth of a second for irregular or older songs, and sort my list accordingly. I cannot include all information in my document, such as hitlist performance, in which countries, but as an alternative I do note the number of views on YouTube. Finally, this list also contains information about the quality of the video. For example, songs with many views but poor quality may still be skipped for the latter reason, or vice versa. When my list has already taken shape in October, I can start splitting the different channels that each piece of music has. For example, nowadays I use Yearmix to get a list of MP3s of each candidate song containing the isolated vocals,
Baby, don't go. Break him out.
the separate drum loops and bass lines, and finally an MP3 called Other, containing everything that remains but is crucial for the recognizability of the song, such as piano, guitars and synthesizers. Converting the songs is a very time-consuming process. It takes my computer about an hour to process 4 minutes of music. That equates to about 35 songs in 24 hours or 220 songs a week. And that's not even all the songs on the list, but just the ones that I think are most likely to end up in the mix. While my computer is busy with Yearmix, I can't give my PC other heavy tasks during a period. In order to make myself useful, I'm already going to focus on the graphics. I collect photos of beautiful locations with, for example, abandoned old televisions or a collection of screens that can serve as transition scenes between certain songs in the mix. I cut out the screens of the TVs with high precision and then stick them over again as a transparent layer. This makes it look more realistic and the clips fit better in their artificially created environment. By giving the final scenes a movement afterwards, if the original source material didn't already have this, the scene comes even more alive as a whole. In this way, songs flow seamlessly, not only in sound but also in image. October 31st is not only Halloween for me, but also a hard deadline every year. Only in exceptional cases I still allow songs in my document that were released after this date, but usually it is too cumbersome to break open the slower parts of the mix, in particular to add new songs at the last minute. Therefore, you are more likely to find another new fast dance song at the end of the mix than a new ballad from Adele to be released on December 20th. I cannot give any tips for mixing techniques. This will differ for everyone and depends on which software you use for this. In my case, the mixing is done in Adobe Audition. In the past, old-fashioned on the edit line, and nowadays largely on a multitrack. For each day, say 6 to 10 hours mixing session, I can add about 5 to 8 minutes of mix per day to the final mix. That equates to about 6 to 10 songs a day. The aim is to eventually mix about 100 songs in 1 hour. For the sake of recognizability, I try to stick to radio edits as much as possible. An example, the original or abbreviated songs as you probably know them best from radio and TV. Extended mixes are always useful as long as they descend directly from the original and have not been altered too much. Although I don't really need these extendeds anymore now that the technology is so advanced that I can completely tear the original radio edit apart with demugs in order to get clean drum loops and vocals. Next to my monitor is a note reminding me of my core values. Thus, I'm reminded that fragments preferably consist of a short intro of 6 to 15 seconds, at least the chorus of 10 to 30 seconds, and then exceptionally an outro if necessary. I never use verses unless a verse is better or more characteristic than the chorus of a song, or that this gives a good build-up to a direct connection to the chorus of another song. I'm certainly not tone deaf, but I can't read music either. I wouldn't be able to recite which key type a song belongs to when I hear the first notes. Fortunately, there's also software for that, which has calculated all my songs on BPM and key. Sometimes a song modulates before the final chorus, so it can happen that I have to measure individual fragments again. Since a C-flat major or an F-sharp still sounds like abracadabra to my ears, I use the wheel of Camelot. This converts the key to a clear 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, etc. This makes it clear to me which songs would fit together best. You prefer to go from 1A to 2A. When you have multiple choices, it's always quite a puzzle and a matter of trying different combinations of transitions before you finally get the best order of songs in the final product. Also very important is that vocals from individual songs do not overlap in a transition. Aside from it being a bit rude, it's also very confusing when you try to sing along as a fan. Unless the vocals alternate exactly so that both artists give each other space.
We said that it would last, but how come it's the last time?
But this is already more in the direction of a mashup, and that's a completely different story. There are empty instrumental spaces between some songs. These are ideal for filling with individual samples, or as with the annual mix last year with isolated vocals from old hits from the 90s. The so-called station calls for the recognizability of radio stations that broadcast the mix can also be pasted here every 15 minutes, or my own voiceover for the online version. The note on the wall further reminds me to avoid transitions between songs that differ by more than 3 or 4 beats per minute increments. I often pull entire sections of songs that are close together in this area by giving them all a fixed same speed. When songs deviate too much from this speed, this is at the expense of the sound quality. Songs that are faster are moved forward to the next grouped puzzle of songs, and they are slid together appropriately in a subsequent mixing session. Most Western pop music is in a so-called 4/4 time rhythm, or common time. In the past, I sometimes tried to include songs with a 3/4 time in a Yearmix. Transitions from common time to 3/4 time are often harsh and ugly. In recent years, I have avoided this group of songs and set them aside in order to make them fit better into their own mix that runs completely in this time rhythm. This has resulted in the now well-known Power Mix from the spring of 2022. With the exception of grouped pieces of 3/4 time trance and dance music towards the end of the mix, you will usually no longer find 3/4 time songs in the regular mixes. Depending on the length of a mix, I can roughly estimate that I will need 60 hours for the audio mixing of a 1-hour mix, 120 working hours for a 2-hour mix, and like last year, 180 hours for the 3-hour Yearmix 2021. Actually, each mix consists of separate mixed-together mini-mixes of 5 to 8 minutes, say the daily yield of a whole day of audio mixing. At the end of each day, I put the daily result on my phone to listen to this mini-mix over the course of the night about 10 times until I can dream each transition, including all errors. Fixing those mistakes is the first thing I do at the beginning of the next day before starting the next chapter of the Yearmix. It usually runs to mid-December before I'm done with the entire audio mix, and then the video part starts. In Adobe Premiere, I import the audio mix, the clips I got from the internet, the photos of abandoned old televisions I cut out and all the other images like my logo and the design I have in mind for the mix. First, I start by looking for the right bits in each video clip that match the part I used in the audio mix and put them in the right place on the multitrack timeline. When the timing and speed are correct, I start thinking about effects or special transitions. Not every one of the 100 transitions per hour needs such a special effect. If clips are a bit similar in style, a hard cut is usually fine. When the design is a bit further apart, such as completely different color tones, black bars on other sides, or a big difference in resolution, it's an idea to process both clips in a pre-cut scene, such as to discard a television in a certain environment. This is of course quite a bit of precision work, in which I again deal with complex, separate multi-track sequences, so I try to limit this to a maximum of once every 10 minutes of mix. For other transitions, it may be enough to adjust the contrast or color balance of certain successive clips so that they blend better, or you may just see black bars gradually scrolling in or out. When all the clips are in place and flow into each other nicely, it's time for the further decoration. Current mixes show the track list on screen. That means that I have to type out and render a title for every song in After Effects because my version of Premiere itself is still too limited in this. In newer versions of Premiere the possibilities are much greater, but I work more pleasantly in an older version. The titles are transparent and all the same length. Sometimes it takes a while to find the right moment for pasting it in, because you don't want a title to roll through the image too early or too late. The video mixing itself is about 4 times faster than audio mixing. If all goes well, I'll be done with the video mix around Christmas. Compiling and exporting the entire mix used to take a whole day, but nowadays only half an evening for a mix of 1 hour and a full evening for an annual mix that lasts longer. At Christmas or shortly after, I check the mix for the last time on the big screen, noting any mistakes and other points of interest. I adjust that for the very last version of the mix until it can also be exported. And then, when the ID3 tags of the audio mix MP3 are provided with the correct information and a picture, I add it to the video mix, along with a track list and album artwork. And this entire folder ultimately forms the torrent that you can download just before New Year's Eve.